Hey guys, this is Gabriela and welcome to today's lesson. Today we're gonna learn how to use the verb to see in different scenarios or in different ways. So I know you might be asking yourself like, wait, how many ways can we use the verb to see? Is there not just one way? Well, actually no. There are like different circumstances or ways to use this verb in Spanish. But we're gonna go through all of these in a second. But before we start, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram for more Spanish content. Alright, let's get started. So the verb to see, which means ver in Spanish in the infinitive form. In general, this refers to the physical capacity of seeing something, perceive something with your eyes, right? It's not like you have to pay attention necessarily, it's just your physical capacity to see something. So just to give you an example of how we use this in the general sense, this is the sentence, I see the house of my neighbor. So in Spanish, this would be veo la casa de mi vecino. So this is literally when you just see something, right? Now let's break down this sentence just to review some of the vocabulary. Alright, so first, I see. In the present tense, as we saw in our previous example, is veo. Now, how would you say the house in Spanish? It would be la casa. Now, how would you say of in Spanish? It would be de. And now, how would you say my neighbors? It would be mis vecinos. Alright, so now the whole sentence. I see the house of my neighbors. How would you say this in Spanish? Awesome. Veo la casa de mis vecinos. All right. So now we have a general sense of how to use this verb, right? But now let's try to check other ways on how to use it. So let's try with the first one. We also use this verb to refer to the action of visiting someone. It's literally like trying to use the verb visit, but instead of using visit, we use the verb to see. Alright, so let's see an example. I am going to see my mom tomorrow, which is voy a ver a mi mamá mañana. You can also change this verb here and you could say, I am going to visit my mom tomorrow, right? But instead of using this, we just use the verb to see. And immediately we know by the context what you mean. Now let's break down the sentence and let's go through the beginning. So, I am going to see. In Spanish would be voy a ver. And this part is a little bit important. I just want to highlight here that voy a is literally a tense in Spanish. It's called futuro próximo, which is like near future or close future if you translate it into English. The way you use the futuro próximo is by using the verb to go in any tense. In this case, it's in the present tense, voy, plus a verb in the infinitive form, which is in this case, ver. What you have to keep in mind here is that you will always have to add this word a in the middle of the two verbs. Even if here you change the tense into past tense, let's say, and you would say fui a ver, which will be I went to see in the past tense. Alright, again, if you say I am going to see, the way you translate this into Spanish is voy a ver. Now, who I am going to see or who I am going to visit? My mom, which is mi mamá. Now, how would you say tomorrow? It would be mañana. So now let's see the whole sentence. I am going to see my mom tomorrow. How would you say all of the sentence in Spanish? Okay. Good. Perfect. Voy a ver a mi mamá mañana. So that's the first case when we use the verb ver or to see without actually perceiving or seeing someone. In this case, it's just to visit a person. Now let's see the second way to use the verb to see, which would be to express the desire to see something happening. So what do I mean with this? As you can see in the next example, I want to see if I can solve this. Quiero ver si puedo resolver esto. Just to give you another example, I will see if I get married. These circumstances are just like you want to know, or you're like expecting that something could happen, or that something will happen in the future. So this is another way we use this verb. You can also replace this verb to see, of course, with something else. Like, for instance, instead of I want to see if I can solve this, you could say I want to know if I can solve this. It's kind of like a replacement in a sense. So now let's try to break down the whole sentence, and let's start with I want. This in Spanish would be quiero, which is in the present tense. The next verb is to see. We already know how to use this, is ver. Now, how do you say if in Spanish? And this is a really important word because we use it all the time, especially to talk about conditional tenses. Alright, so how do you say if in Spanish? Sí. So now, how do you say I can? And we already saw this verb in a previous video. The way we say this in Spanish is puedo, which is in the present tense. And the last part of our sentence would be solve this. This would be resolver esto. So now let's try with the whole sentence. I want to see if I can solve this. How do we say that in Spanish? Okay, good. Quiero ver si puedo resolver esto. Now the third way we use the verb to see would be to describe something that we are watching, like any kind of entertainment, such as sports, TV shows, or movies. This can be a little bit confusing because this verb, when it's translated into English, instead of to see, it would be to watch. So it can be a little bit confusing, but it is what it is, right? It's still the same verb in Spanish, and we use it to describe when we are watching something. So just to give you an example, I like to watch TV on weekends. Me gusta ver televisión los fines de semana. Let's try to break down this sentence. Let's start with the first part. I like. So I like is me gusta. To watch. Why did I put the question mark here? Just to remind you that you don't need to be confused. This still means ver, which is to see, but when it's translated into English, it becomes to watch. So to watch is ver in the infinitive form. Now, how do we say TV? And of course, it's super useful to know this word because we watch TV all the time. How do we say TV in Spanish? Televisión. And finally, how do we say on weekends? Los fines de semana. Now, let's try to translate the whole sentence. I like to watch TV on the weekends. How do we say that in Spanish? Perfect. Me gusta ver televisión los fines de semana. And now let's go to the last way to use the verb to see in Spanish. So it would be to indicate, to show that we understand why something is happening. So to give you an example, here we have, now I see why you are acting weird. Instead of using I see, we could say, now I understand why you're acting weird. It's a pretty good equivalent of this verb. So now I see why you're acting weird. It would be, ahora veo por qué estás actuando raro. So let's try to break down this sentence. Now is ahora. And I'm pretty sure you already know this verb. I see. How do we say this in the present tense? Veo. Alright, perfect. How do we say why? ¿Por qué? So now how do we say you are acting? It would be tú estás actuando. And now how do we say weird? It's raro. now that we broke down all of the sentence, how would you say, now I see why you're acting weird? Mm-hmm. Great. It would be, ahora veo por qué estás actuando raro. Perfect, guys. This would be it. These are the 4 ways on how to use the verb to see in Spanish, plus the general definition of the verb to see. So thank you so much for watching this video. I will be publishing other videos soon. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram and subscribe to my channel. Don't miss out and see you soon. Bye!